To the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this Friday morning. It's the 27th of March, just in case you were wondering. And it is a Friday where people we've been fed captive audience to what could be potentially an interesting day in terms of what will happen with the nation's politics, of course, with the SDC and the NDC happening with the ODM party. What we're doing at this point is we're going to have the week in review, and we'll take a look at it. Of course, it's going to take a political swing and what could potentially happen today. And in order for us to do that, Ndu and Joe having the conversation this morning, and two of our guests are seated in the hot seats of the Situation Room this morning for us to then have an analytical view of what's been going on and what could potentially happen. Kidi Mwaga is the Secretary of Policy and Legislative Affairs with KANU. Kidi, good morning.
You're not far from the truth. You should just have said,
I said Secretary General.
The incoming SG.
I should have just let it flow.
Yes.
Okay.
But yes.
Okay.
Secretary, Policy and Legislative Affairs, KANU.
Good morning.
Good morning, Do.
You're well?
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine who works in the area of counterterrorism and violent extremism.
Oh, God.
And he was telling me that he loves how you conduct the hot seat.
Oh, wow.
Yes. If it were not for his work, he would be here talking to you.
Okay, that's fantastic. Please do say hello to him.
I will.
And we don't want him to get fired so that he can come here, but it would be great to have a conversation with him to understand a couple of things that they do.
Yes.
You're also in a good company this morning. Advice Mundalo is a leadership and communication specialist also in the hot seat this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Do. It's been a very long while since I was here.
Long time.
Very, very long.
In which hall have you been hiding?
No, I've not been in any hall. I've just been around your corridors here. But I don't know, I was passing all the other sides except here. But I'm very happy to be back here.
We blame Terry.
Yeah, because...
in all things. Terry must answer.
Yeah, but I'm very glad to be back here. You know, this was the beginning of revolution of radio, where radio met TV for the first time in real time.
Right.
And we started having very serious, tangible conversations.
Indeed.
Started here. I can see now everyone else copying you. It's good to lead from the front.
And remember that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah, exactly.
That mediocrity pays to greatness. Indeed. And that speaks to your greatness, Ndu.
Wow, hey, today's that day, man.
Kidi, I think Kidi has more than one mission.
Yes.
No, we just called me 3 times.
Yes, my brother Josephat Kamanya.
Well, we're glad that we're all here in the room this morning. And indeed, one of the things that we say, no matter what, beyond the flair and beyond everything else, we want to make sure that why we have these conversations is that it's necessary for us to speak and to talk about things that may be swept under the carpet in a manner that is going to bring out the truth, that will speak truth. It doesn't matter at what level we will. And we have people who can invite to have these conversations. We thank you for joining us. As you know, we go around the African continent every week. We come back from a particular country with their proverbs. This week has found us in the Francophone country of Guinea. And we'd love to get your interpretation of this, both of you. We'll start with Kidi, since you seem to be armed with words this morning. Your beauty will take you there, but your character will bring you back.
What I make of that? Yes? Yes, I think that beauty is something that is admirable, especially when you look in a certain way that is appealing to the eyes. When you speak in a manner that people can associate with and say, open the doors for that young man or for that young lady or for that individual. But then again, the character is whom you are when nobody's watching. And therefore, the character goes into who are you. The character goes into what is, say, for instance, is Mundalo, is Kidi, what is Kenya? So that when that character is not built sufficiently to sustain you in places so that you know the values of integrity, of patience, of compassion, then at some point people will discover that you cannot stay in the room. They have to let you go. And indeed they will let you go.
All right.
I held the floor to my wordsmith brother.
No, you are the wordsmith here, Kidi. I think Kidi has rightfully put it very, very well. I think I would simply be able to say, I think the long and short of it is just that presentation alone will not create sustainability. So it's not just about how the presentation is. It is more about how sustainable then are you. That at the end of the day, your presentation can open the door. Just because you presented very well, it can make someone open the door and say, wow, this is good enough. But then how long you stay in that room after the door is opened highly depends on then the depth that you have. It's like when you're coming to the situation room, a good photo and a good poster can make someone tune in. But what comes out of your mouth determines whether they'll tune in to the end.
Okay, well then.
Well, let's see.
How about we use that to then jump into this conversation? It's been an interesting week in the country, and a lot of times when we say that, we actually push things politically.
Yeah.
But how about we sandwich the two? And we say that while there is and continues to be, I mean, today is one of those days where there's going to be a lot of political activity around the SDC happening with ODM party and the NDC, which is the Linda Mwananchi side of things, the People's NDC. That's happening today. But there's a backstory to all of this, and that there are things that have been happening whereby, we've coming off a week where there have been political, slurs thrown at all sides from which political party. There's been talks of tribalism and things going on. The IEBC is trying to register as many people as possible. We're looking towards the 2027 election. We are talking about whether parties should fold or still not be part of each other, who's siding with who, which party is being collapsed. All of these things are happening while the Auditor General, Joe's best friend, is telling us that, 6.3 billion shillings is in somebody's private account. 1 billion shillings has been lost somewhere else. Children are still not able to go to school. Health SHA is unsustainable. Said by no one else but by the committee that is responsible for ensuring that it's there in the first place. Education also, we could have a problem if they don't get enough money. My God, all of these things, that's why I said it's a sandwich. So there's a political side of things that's happening, but then there's the real side of things whereby this sandwich doesn't seem very appealing.
The social contract appears to be in jeopardy.
Yes. So when we talk about the week in review, have we had a good week, Kitty?
Well, I think that we've had a good week that could get better.
Okay.
You could have had a better week. A lot of things, of course, are happening, as you rightly put it. Our friends in the broad-based government, ODM party, is meeting to determine its future. I think our brothers, again, their brothers from calling, as a consequence, they are two leaders now. The two leaders are planning, again, other engagements, which are calculated to counter. But from where I sit, I think that somebody within the Linda Mwananchi group is following an old script. When President Moi called for an NDC in Kasarani to determine the future of KANU in 2002, other people within KANU then decided to call Kasarani Kisirani.
Okay.
And they went elsewhere, and that again determined the fate of both KANU and which is my party, and of course the country fundamentally then. 20 years later, or 20-something years later, 23 years later, somebody is trying to replicate that script. That while ODM has called for its special National Delegates Conference at a particular venue, they want to steal the thunder by also saying that we are also going to Ufungamano. But I think that a time has come where we have got to be very analytical about these things, because the collective future of the generation and the country is at stake. That therefore means that I think that, of course, my sister Winnie has decided to stick with the party. And I still think that the place of mainstream politics is something we must not deviate from. So one of the questions that will be posed to our friends from the Linda Mwananchi is that what is their political party? What is their ideology? What is a viable political vision, alternative political vision that are they projecting? Until they answer those questions, I think we will look at them the same way we looked at Peter Kenneth when he said Navesmek.
How did you look at him then?
because he was this big thing on social media that did not in any way determine the direction of 2013 presidential elections.
Okay.
And that was the first time I was going to the polls. So I was curious enough to monitor how everything panned out. And it died like tunaita moto ya karatasi.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, advice.
Yeah.
I mean, development dynamics keep changing.
Yeah.
We have the party politics. I
Yeah.
think ODM is a party affair. And we
Yeah.
try to turn it to a national conversation, but in its essence, just a party affair. The same way other parties are trying to reorganize and strategize towards the election.
Yeah.
But I'm also, there is an interesting factor. We have now the populace, the people, saying Nikokadi.
Yeah.
They are claiming to be part now. I mean, they are finally rising up to the occasion of knowing that in this process, if you don't engage now, we shall be shortchanged then. You know, like you're saying, you spoke about presentation and sustenance.
Yeah.
Presentations are coming in terms of manifestos, and
Yes.
party agendas and aspirants.
Yeah.
But sustenance is what you're grappling with now. As Kidi says, gets a point, people come up and they say, you must go.
Yeah.
Because you're not able to sustain the presentation that you gave us.
Yeah.
How do you read the mood now that the new people, the young people are beginning to step up and say, we are going to register? And I'm sure after they register, they'll plug into the party politics.
Yes.
How do you read the mood?
I think the mood is like this. First of all, there is this excitement around the young people registering, and it's almost made to look like it's happening for the very first time. Every time we have headed to the election in Kenya, there has always been a youthful wing that has always come up to be able to rally the young people to vote. I remember there was the Vijana na Kibaki, and all these things have always been there. So it's just always the change of name from Vijana na Kibaki to, there was something about Uhuru.
Warembo na Uhuru.
Warembo na Uhuru. There was the mobilization. I remember at some point the musicians came together, they mobilized people. So these things have first of all been there. And it's very, very important that young people understand that they are not reinventing the wheel. Overpraising them is it's getting into their head. And they are starting to think, finally, there is this new phenomenon that is now happening in the country. The question should be that while this has always happened, how come things have not kept changing? And it goes back to the adage that you gave us from Guinea, that sustenance is the most important thing. It is not just about presentation. And my generation has always had that problem. We are very good at creating the political excitement for the moment. But then sustaining it, that is where the old guards have always beaten us. And that's why our politics have always remained the same. So we create a euphoric moment. There is political euphoria. But when political euphoria is not well packaged, it has never delivered political results. And that's why from the beginning, you see the times when Matiba came back to the country from the US.
Brilliant.
And there was a mammoth of people that went to the airport to pick Matiba. And there was a lot of euphoria. And that was able to get into his head. It made him imagine that he didn't need the rest of the opposition principals to agree. So he went it alone. The results were there to speak for themselves. You come, you find my brother has rightfully talked about the case of Peter Kenneth. There was Pastor Pius Muiru, who at one point was more famous than the president of Kenya.
Yes.
And there was a euphoric moment at the time. There was the excitement, and people felt like, wait a minute, we can actually go this direction. Now the results were there to show for themselves. Just recently, you remember when Chief Justice Maraga declared that he's running,
Yes.
there was again a lot of excitement, a lot of online excitement, a lot of people were enthusiastic about it. Until he even thought now people can actually come and put together some money for him. It didn't go beyond 7.5 million shillings. Now, that is the tragedy of political excitement. And that's why I feel like both the Linda Mwananchi camp and the Nikokadi campaign must not just stop at that excitement, because then it will not convert into political results. At the end of the day, we are about slightly just above a year to the next election. There are very fundamental things that make you have impact in an election.
Right.
For instance, the first thing is you go to an election with a political party. So even if you hold a parallel NDC, now that is political excitement. Because the truth is, all of us know how an NDC is called. So the truth is, it's not an NDC.
Right.
But it is something that can excite your followers for the moment, because you need to sustain some political relevance.
It's interesting that you say this advice.
Yeah.
Because one would argue that the circumstances by which Matiba was welcomed back to the country, that Peter Kenneth was running for president, or that other things happened whereby there was political excitement that disappeared like Moto ya Karatasi. It's very different from what's happening in the country, that there seems to have been a sustained yearning for something different that we saw even before 2024. 2024 being the pivot point whereby there was the first time that we saw people agitating for something totally different in the manner in which it did, that culminated in protests that unfortunately saw the death and injury of very many people.
I do not...
We see that inertia is still what is pushing people today to go to the point whereby they say, I will register, not just so that I can be seen, but so that I can vote to move the needle. This same inertia that was there 2 years ago seems to be the same thing that's propelling. Every day we hear from people and we see the headlines and they say, oh my God, that this thing is happening is the reason why I must be Nico Kadi. This thing that I'm seeing happening where the money is disappearing in droves every day is the reason why I must vote. Do you see that there seems to be beyond the fire, the scorched earth theory that we look at that just grazes the top? This is something that people are carrying with them. It's the same inertia that saw the father who asked his son, don't go to the protest. And he said, you know what, Dad? You take care of my younger ones. You tell them the story, if I die, why I was outside. We haven't seen that before. It seems to be a little bit different now.
It has actually happened before, and that happened in 2002. And that is the time when political euphoria all actually created the result.
No, when people were saying when people said Moi must go,
yes,
people did not go into the streets to protest and die.
It is, people have always gone to the street in this country, and people have always died in this country when they went to the street. So it is more or less the same thing. It's only that probably maybe this has happened when we were here, and we might be able to think that it is the height of it because the rest of it is history, and maybe we are not there. But the truth is that at the end of the day, for instance, what happened in 2002 is that the euphoria was able to be given direction and well packaged, and that is how it delivered the result.
What result?
The result was that Moi was actually gotten out, and there was a new regime that came in through NAC. Now, the difference is this now here with what is happening today in this country. The coming up with a direction is what I keep questioning and saying, at the end of the day, when we are going to the election, we must go, for instance, number one, with a political party. You must be able to have a candidate. So at the end of the day, the anger and the everything must be packaged towards a direction. When you delay to get the direction right, then many things do not change. And that is where the old guards continue to beat the younger generation. Because then they have the depth of how this thing has always been. And you realize that most of the old guard politicians are not interested in running away from the tribal rhetoric, because that is the script as they know it. And they want to advance it that way, and they will keep doing it that way. So if something has to be done, especially about the younger generation and such, it must just not stop at political euphoria. There must be a semblance to give this thing real direction, where we call for a real political party. The real political party then is able to lead people to a real election, which has real candidates. Otherwise, it will always start and end at that euphoric moment.
What are the indicators that this is purely a euphoric moment?
The indicator is very simple, that when you look at the blocks that take you to the election, all of them are not ready. There is no candidate. There's no political party. And that's what I'm telling you. And then the narrative will has kept changing.
Pundits will argue it this way, advice, that one, we're in a revolution. And Kenyans are calling for full implementation of the rule of law, better economic management. They've been clear on that since 2024. What keeps changing might be the faces of the revolution. But the call for good governance in this country is very persistent across board. Now, people are saying they are tired. They don't have faith in this regime, in giving them the transformation that we deserve in our lifetime. And therefore, mechanisms of approaching that keeps on changing. Yes, indeed, there may not be a pronounced presidential candidate now, because it is not yet time. We are still 70 weeks, or if you like, 69 Sundays. The election. Okay? So there is ample time.
Yes.
And that's why people are saying right now is the time to invest in registering so that we can all create a voice.
Yeah.
When people say must go, like Nikokadi, they are loosely translating it to say it means Ruto must go. And when they say Ruto must go, it's not just the person, it's the regime must change and the administrative and governance structures must be revised to meet the needs of the day. Therefore, it might be argued that, yes, it is not yet time to have a candidate. Even IEBC will give us slots for aspirants to be cleared for candidacy next year around April or May. But wherever we are today, are you not hearing the call for good governance? Are you not seeing the revolution in play for a better nation today, regardless of your political affiliation as an individual? Are you not?
Kamanya, that question is directed to my brother Mundalo,
Right?
but will permit me to jump in and answer it.
Go ahead.
Ruto must go was a slogan that had succeeded the Reject Finance Bill. Reject Finance Bill was a direct response to how the young people felt that the Finance Bill 2024 had been communicated in a manner that looked not sensitive to not only the realities, but also the realities of many households in the country. But then you realize that in moments such as that, usually slogan is used as a tool to rally. But then you realize that it quickly metamorphosed from Reject the Finance Bill into Ruto must go. Again, you must appreciate Ruto must go for what it is. I was telling my sister Ndu that I was talking to a friend of mine from the Counterterrorism Center. Part of the many hats I wear is the convener Manifesto Yetu and convener Interparties Youth Forum. Entities that have attempted to bring together young people from across the political divide to seek to understand that where are we as a country and where are we headed. One of the things that have emerged is the threat of political extremism, which manifests itself in the fashion of nihilistic, violent extremism. In nihilistic, violent extremism, people then lose faith in society, and they feel that the best way to respond to the challenges that they face in their lives is through violent means. Sometimes it underscores the hopelessness that these people have. If you look at the time the president was coming in, you look at the cost of living, you look at the unemployment rates, and you also look at how our politics is structured. Our politics is structured in such a manner that candidates are sometimes forced to give very, for purpose of this conversation, let me call them outlandish promises. But then again, the way our governance works, the governance is a very slow-moving beast that sometimes is outpaced by the demands of society. So when you come to Ruto must go, and that is why part of why I felt that I need to jump in, and comparing Tukokadi and Ruto must go, I think it misses the point by the river. Why? The question is, what of the young people who feel that Ruto must stay? Number one. Number two is that, have we had a chance to interrogate the very programs that this government has attempted to put in place, and have those programs panned out?
Like what?
Again, listen, hold your horse, Ndu. So I was speaking to the question of nihilistic, violent extremism as one of the governance issues that we must be alive to. Again, Tukokadi is an all-encompassing initiative that makes sure that young people are registered. When these young people and people who are not registered are registered, then we must also make sure that we shepherd them into political parties. Because one of the things that must not happen to Kenya, considering that Kenya is an anchor state, look at the state in Tanzania, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, and all the countries neighboring us, we must channel our political both frustration and optimism through the mainstream political processes, which was one of the things Manifesto was seeking to achieve, which is one of the things that I think Nikokadi is seeking to achieve, which is moving young people as tools of political extremism into channeling their energies into mainstream political processes as envisaged by the Constitution. So the Nikokadi thing, as I conclude, so that I bring you in, the Nikokadi thing must not, in my view, be equated with Ruto must go, as we knew it, because Ruto must go was a direct call to attempt to make calls that are not anticipated in the Constitution.
Well, advice.
Yeah.
You see, people who define terrorism, extremism, and holistic political extremism
Very good.
are mostly the ruling regime. And they're trying to fight back the revolt from the people. Because people come out and say, your leadership style, the approach, the policy, the public policy is not in tandem with what we demand as a people. And that's why you hear these now slogans coming up. Ruto must go, Vituko Kadi, all those things. Zakayo Washuke, many have come and gone. So, and they'll keep changing. But what's your opinion on now trying to reconcile what people are calling for, what is needed, and the insistence that no, some quarters will say, no, this is fine, the government is okay, you're just being antagonistic.
Yeah, I'll keep insisting that one of the reasons why most of these movements have almost always failed to give any deliverable results is because most of the time it's anchored on sentiment, and sentimentalism does not change governance. It is an effective plan that does. The old guards have always beaten us at that. They have a plan. I always argue that the old have a plan even when it's a bad plan. The young have sentiments most of the time. So at the end of the day, yes, there is this rage and all this. But if it's not packaged for political result, it will end at just being just that. And it's also wrong to imagine that everyone who is young is saying Ruto must go. Yeah, or the entire country is saying Ruto must go. And that is why most of the time I listen to fellow panelists, and you'll realize that when someone is saying that Ruto must go and the government has done nothing, they quickly get very agitated when someone says that the government has done something. Why? Because most argument is really centered on sentiment, and so you are inspiring more anger than a plan. And if there is no real plan, the results will actually be just the way they have always been. So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, we are a democracy. And those ones who, the majority will always have their way.
Right.
The only way to become the majority is to have an effective plan to lead us to that majority. Everyone, remember, President Ruto, who is in office today, has tangible, he has things that some people believe have been done. He has people who believe that he must be able to come back. He is also organizing. You can be able to see him holding meetings. You are seeing him in Nyeri moving there and meeting 17,000 people. You are seeing him in State House meeting his aspirants. You are seeing him moving up in the country every other day, meaning he understands that the political process of the next election will be through the vote and through the people and through the ballot. And so he is organizing. So every other person must also organize. And if that does not happen, then the one who organizes will win the election, not the one with the highest amount of sentiment.
Is that what the president should be doing? It's a question Kenyans are asking. He runs an office, he has a national duty. Time for campaigning, even according to IEBC, is not yet on. You know? We're still waiting for the whistle to be blown. And so those are the questions Kenyans are asking.
That is something
that is the incumbency has the duty, one, to deliver to the nation. If they want to defend their position, a time will come for that. So that's a conversation people are already asking. Now, the other question perhaps I'd want to ask is, could it be you don't see, now maybe you as advice, you don't see the plan, the organization of the Gen Z because you're not in their revolution? Could that be the case?
That would also be the case. And most of the time what I have learned in politics, and I've been around these circles for a while together with my brother Kidi here. And when I was in the ruling party, serving on the neck of the Jubilee Party, there was a problem that we had towards the election. And every time we looked for a convenient thought that made us look intelligent. We lost by-elections towards the election. We lost the by-election in Juja. We lost the other by-election in Kiamba. And we lost the by-election in Meru. When we kept losing those by-elections, we came up with a convenient thinking, and we're able to say, we are not paying a lot of attention to this by-election because, you see, the general election is the main thing, it's the real thing. And that is what we sold to our supporters, because when you're in politics, you always look for something to make your people continue believing in you. The truth is, the trajectory went the same and we lost the election at the end of the day. That's where it culminated. So even today, there will always be convenient thinking. that says, when opposition loses the by-election, they'll say, government can put money in all the quotas, and you see that is why. They will be able to say, these things can be rigged at such a place. The reality is this. The politics is only won by the person who organizes the best and gets their people out to vote. When you ask about why the president is moving around and doing whatever he's doing, when you go to State House today, there are two flags. The flag of the Republic of Kenya and the flag of UDA.
Well, it's not the UDA flag, but it's the regime.
Yeah, because the government in place is a government out of a political party. Our democracy is like that. So at the end of the day, the president, yes, is the president, but he's also the political party leader of UDA. And he's conscious of the coming election. And as a party, they must be able to organize and get ready for the next election. He who wants to get them out must do the same in better frame and better formula. Making it, thinking that when you sit and then say the president is wrong, he should not be doing this, makes you right and therefore you win election, is poor strategy in my view. What I think should be done is that when you really, really think that something needs to be done, you go ahead and do it. Otherwise, look at now the Nikokadi campaign, which I felt was a very good campaign in terms of rallying the young people to vote. But now, when you make it an imagination as though now the campaign is equivalent to Ruto must go, now again you water down the campaign. Because then the people who are going to come out to register and vote, those who are in support of the regime, you now make them feel like they're not part and parcel of this campaign. In my view, I felt like it was a win for the campaign when politicians jumped onto it. Why? Because the first thing you need is you need enough people to register. Now, after you have enough people who have registered, you can now convince them to vote a certain way. But now, when people are rallying on to try and make people register, you again delegitimizing them by saying, no, we don't want you, we want this other person, we want this other person.
No,
for me, it becomes more sentiment. It makes sense from a sentiment perspective, but I don't think it makes strategic sense.
I think we need to clarify something here. And I think that the sentiments that came out from people, not about wanting you or not, but that people were looking to debunk this thing where in the past, politicians have piggybacked on ideas for political expediency and not for the issue, the aorta of the idea, whereby people did not make the connection between their democratic right to choose the next administration and their by their vote. Didn't make the connection. Whether we want to, it may make sense to you because people didn't get it, that you can't sit. So this could be the answer, and I'm going to ask Kitty, that you cannot sit in your house and imagine that your sentiment is going to bring in the next leader if you wanted a change. But that now we see that even if it's a wave, well and good, but what is happening? People are registering. And so people have made the connection that I will be involved in the next decision, and that's why they're insisting on going to register. Does that make any sense?
Well, it does make a lot of sense in this, but in a context. And the context is, and I started by saying that when I was talking about nihilistic violent extremism, again, sometimes finding its way as a tool of expression in politics, that you look at the root causes. And one of the root causes is the loss of significance. When a majority of people feel that they've lost significance, then they resort to a lot of means to try to regain that significance. What are the things that lead us to that loss of significance? One of them could be the high cost of living. It could be the unemployment rate. It could be marginalization. It could be the feeling that the duty bearer does not care. And so when all this happens, then that is where you realize that the young people then step on the streets to want to regain that significance. It is again from there that you realize that even a good initiative now as to Kokadi is therefore weaponized as a tool against the duty bearer. And when the duty bearer or people associated with the duty bearer jump on it, they're quick to say, this is not for you. Why are they saying it is not for you? Because they in their estimation is that this Nikokadi is a protest against the duty bearer. From a strategic standpoint, you then therefore realize that that has a net effect of eroding an otherwise good initiative. Because then again, when the rubber hits the road, you realize that a typical influencer might have, say, not more than 100,000 people on their Twitter account. About a week or so ago, our friends from the Linda Mwananchi faction said that they are very popular, and they set up something through which their members could register. After weeks of rallies and a lot of political abracadabra, they were only coming to 25,000. In the words of their own leader, that those numbers could only help someone get elected as an MCA or an MP in some of the remotest constituencies. As someone who continues to work with young people, as someone who thinks that this country is too good to fail unless we stop believing in ourselves, I think that we can organize better, but that organizing must be informed by mainstream political organizing as envisaged in the Constitution. Thank you.
And that is what the young people are resisting.
Saying no to.
Yes. They're saying that the old organizing political systems have failed them.
And that they can be bought or influenced.
Evidenced by some people who are leading the Gen Z uprising at the onset of the revolution in 2024 ended up in some particular political parties.
Yes.
And at the time, it was a leader less, tribe less. But eventually, some people emerged as leaders and they were absorbed in some other political parties. Now, people are saying they don't want that.
Yes.
Again, they have lost faith in these political parties because they're saying the same political parties have continued to congregate. They mutate as they find fit.
Yes.
That's when you end up with handshake, cooperation, whatever form of, merger you want to call it, just for political expediency, to save their own skin. Now, young people are saying, no, we know, number one, that we, the people, hold the power.
Yes.
We, the people, even in those political parties, we are the members. So we are the membership who should advise the party leaders on the direction to take. That is what people are saying no to. But you seem to be insisting that that is wrong. Both could be right at the same time. But what do you think will carry the day?
I want to bring in my brother advice, but let me say this so that I tie to what I said last. That one, recently there is a country called Madagascar. Growing up, it had a president called Makraval Omanana.
Right.
From where I come from, we used to say Makrabolo banana, which simply means, well, we call banana in my mother tongue Rabolo. So we used to get confused that, what do you mean Makrabolo banana? Again, that joke will only be understood by people from where I grew up.
Indeed.
The thing is, in the wave of Arab Spring, they elected someone called Andrew Rajoelina. Recently, you know that Andrew Rajoelina had to take off.
He didn't have to take off. They drove him out of the country.
They drove him out of the country.
There's a big difference between the two. And I'm glad that you're using that Madagascar example.
Yes.
Because it could give a meaning as to what people are saying. Did they have a plan? They didn't. Did they have a plan?
No.
Did they have somebody who was rallying them around this idea?
Ndoya, I am your guest. You will let your guest make a statement,
Exactly.
make his point.
One thing that we will not allow also is for us to not go in a particular direction.
Yes.
Because if we want to use that as an example,
Yes.
if we allow me now to be the one to bring you in,
Yes.
that when we are saying that there must be a plan, there must be a leader, there must be something that you coalesce around,
Yes.
there must be you must go, as advice has said, towards the mainstream political agenda.
Yes.
You brought up Madagascar. They did everything but those things.
Yes.
And their agenda was to get rid of Rajoelina. And
Yes.
they did. He had to leave the country, not just the State House.
But you see, you jumped in before I said the next thing I was going to say. And that is why I'm reminding you that I'm your guest. And I wish you give me an opportunity to make my point.
You have a minute to do so.
That subsequently, the person they brought in, again, did not come in through what you call through a democratic means. They had to just find somebody else with the ties to the same old establishment. No, in 2011, in the heat of that Arab Spring thing, we had secular young people in Tahrir Square in Egypt who were able to organize and mobilize. But then again, for lack of what my brother calls the plan, subsequently, it is Muslim Brotherhood that came in and occupied that void. And again, when there was elite fallout between the Muslim Brotherhood and the military, then Fatah el-Sisi came in. I think that the young people of Kenya can learn from these mistakes and then say that we must organize better. Part of why some of us think that we can organize better and within the confines of the mainstream organizing as envisaged in the Constitution is this. That one, if there is a fallout akin to the ones in these other places that some of you want us to look as shining examples, there will be collapse in institutions locally. Because when individuals come in who have not come in through the ballot, there are some of the things they will have to institute. One of them being what do you call it? Curfews. Curfews, military curfews within certain times and within certain times. So I think that we are better off with a democracy that is imperfect, that we can strive to perfect, than making a case for this other alternative means that are not backed with the law.
You make it sound like you're fear-mongering and letting the people know that they do not own this country enough to chart a direction that they desire.
Yes.
And I would ask you, Kidi,
yes,
where in Africa has a revolution been organized successfully? Because we keep citing examples where, like the Arab Spring, things collapsed. We keep saying if you don't congregate and organize politically, things will collapse.
Yes.
The Gen Z themselves, the Gen Z revolution said they want to unseat President Ruto constitutionally on the ballot. And that's why they're registering. They're not plotting a coup.
Nope. They're registering.
They're registering so they can do it constitutionally. They want order, good governance, rule of law. The burden of responsibility is you bear both of you. The one you want to unseat and the one whom you want to bring and the one who is unsitting. So I would ask you, give us an example in Africa where the youth have organized to unseat an oppressive regime.
Again, it has happened before in this country when in 2002, people went to the ballot and voted, and that vote counted. Again, in 2007, I didn't have the good fortune of voting because I was too young to vote. But again, that the young people voted, except that people who are counting the vote decided to engage in other things. So the vote has counted. In 2017, again, that...
Except when people want to engage in other things.
Listen, no. In 2017...
The oxymoronic
listen,
version of what you've just said. No, I'm sorry. Kidi,
Yes.
You've just said
Yes.
that the vote counted except when people wanted to do other things. You've just said
No,
that.
I've said in 2007,
As an
the
example,
vote counted, except that the people who are counting the votes decided to engage in other things.
So that cannot be used as an example.
Yes.
That's the point.
No,
That it
but-
cannot be used as an example. It does not suffice. Because here we are and we're saying, what are the reasons why people are coming out today? And they're saying, you know what, this cannot be. Historical experience is one of the reasons why you will forever say, this thing that Advice and Kidi are telling us today, you must go that way, is because it has been tried by your own example before, and it has failed. Whereby they're saying, okay, show us your leader, so that what, you can co-opt him or her? Show us who the person is going to be so that they can be bought out. Do you see the very real fears that people have? So by when they say, I'm going to stand outside this IEBC office today to ensure that my registration is counted, we cannot take away from the historical experience of people, whether they were told or whether they experienced it. So now here they are saying, you know what? Everybody is forcing us into this block. And who's to say that a democracy that has been handed down to Kenya is the one that must be followed? Where you can still abide within the constitution. People are saying, don't make me choose somebody today. But listen to what I'm saying, whereby we say the way in which we have lived cannot be the way we continue to live going into the future. Does that not suffice as inertia that's going to push people towards a decision, whomever it may be? Raila Odinga did not shout Kibaki Tosha for a year. He shouted it months to an election. Months, in a very short period of time. Nobody knew that he was going to do that. Everybody knew that Raila Odinga wanted to be president. When did he say Kibaki Tosha? And it hit, like this fire that you talk about, Karatasi. I was not there, but I knew and I could understand exactly what happened. Nobody knew 2 years before the election in 2002 that Raila Odinga was going to say Kibaki Tosha, but he did. And in the last minute, it caught. Not a good enough example?
It is a good enough example, but again in a context. The context being is that right now we want young people to register. the Dukokadi thing is to get everyone to register, and it must not be weaponized against any one individual or any one faction.
Who is weaponizing it? Advice. Who is weaponizing Tukokadi right now? Who is weaponizing it?
Let's see.
I'm asking, who is
Okay.
weaponizing it?
Okay, again, I'll keep saying that the rise of the level of sentiment will not give results to the country. And also the imagination that all young people or all Gen Zs want President Ruto to go is again a fallacy that will lead us to the wrong result. And that's why every time a young person will hear the colleague young person speaking the language that they do not agree with, they'll get unnecessarily annoyed, running away from the very democratic principles that are supposed to be governing them. And we are not saying, I am not saying that people need to do the traditional things. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that our law provides for a way in which governments are formed. And therefore, we must be able to abide by what the law provides. Otherwise, when we run away from that, the other guys stick to that, and then when push comes to shove, they become the only ones who are legitimate then. Okay? Because, for instance, what I'm saying, to run for office, one, you need a political party. It is not an old practice. Yeah, it is not tradition. It is not fear-mongering. It is the truth. It is our law. Okay? So when we are saying to do anything meaningful in terms of regime change or anything like that, you need a political party. It's just the truth. So once you need a political party, then you need people who will be able to be running on these political parties. And it's not just from the top, it's from the lowest level. Because no matter who you have as president, when you do not have the parliament and don't have these other organs, it is counterproductive. And this understanding of governance is what the people need to understand. So that at the end of the day, we are not just driving their thinking by use of sentiment. So that we have to understand that there is a parliament in Kenya that has about 400 members. These people are the ones who lead the budget process. They're the ones who, you've just quoted what some of them are saying about SHA.
And a fine
all
job
that.
they've done of that.
Now, those members of parliament that we have in that parliament are brought to that house by the people.
By the vote.
By the vote. And that's what I'm saying, we must be able to organize so that at the end of the day, if the problem is at this regime level, it must change from onset, from the parliamentarians to the MCAs to all that.
Who said?
But
Who says
if
it
the
must?
focus,
Who says it must?
If the focus, I don't want to quote him and say, allow me make my point. You realize we have allowed you make your point.
No. This is a question. I'm sorry, but when you make a statement, I can actually come in and ask you. When you say it must, I'm asking, who says it must?
The Constitution.
That it must go via way of changing across the board
the Constitution
for a new change to
provides.
come in place?
The Constitution provides.
It doesn't dictate.
The Constitution provides. You can choose the words. But the truth is that the parliament is the body in Kenya that makes law. Okay? And most of what the executive comes with will be able to be taken to that parliament. The people who will allocate what is mostly called the cake of the Republic of Kenya will be done in that parliament. That does not change because of choice of words or sentiment. That does not change because of the emotions we have as a country. So that is the truth. And that's what I'm saying. It is good to understand governance in context. So that when people are able to go to the next election, they do not carry their emotions alone. Because most of the reason why we are where we are and do is because all our elections we have gone with our emotions. And that's why all our governments are unpopular 3 months after we vote them
What
in.
should we take to
3
this-
months after we
what
vote
should
them
we take
in,
to this
we want
election?
the next, we want them to go away.
Devoid of emotions.
Yeah.
It could be very hard because every government rises up on an emotion called hope.
And that's
But
why we
we are
keep
going
not
to-
wanting it after we vote for it.
Exactly. So what should we be taking to this election? What should be our guiding radar on how we approach this election?
Good. Our guiding radar as we move to the next election, as the people, number one is objectivity. We must reduce the voice of our sentiment and emotion and start being objective. And we must also understand that most of the time, if not all the time, the interest of politicians is to themselves, not to us. And most of the time, the politicians will speak our language when they want our vote. So us just voting people because they spoke our language is us accepting to have been conned. We must be able to lead the narrative as the people and decide what do we want.
So now
Now,
you're
when
speaking
we
a lot.
decide-
We've come full
when we
circle.
decide-
Wonderful.
When we decide
Yes.
what do we want as the people, it will lead us to who do we want to vote for. But the problem is that most of the time, we are taking the narrative from the politician. Okay? And almost all the time, the politician's interest is in themselves. So for once, the people must make themselves their own stakeholder. When they make themselves their own stakeholder,
Yes.
then they will be able to organize effectively.
And-
And when they organize effectively, they will get the desired change.
You've come-
But if they do not do that,
Yes.
then the script will remain the same. We will carry our emotions, take them to the election, and vote for the person who incites our emotion the best.
Well-
2 months after that election,
Yes.
we will still be saying that person must go.
go.
And that will continue being a roller coaster.
Advice.
Yeah.
I like how the conversation, it
Yeah.
comes full circle. And
Yeah.
that's why it's important to allow ourselves to converse.
Yeah.
We may not always agree from the word go.
True.
But I love it that when it comes to the end of the hour,
Yeah.
we find our way of agreeing.
Yeah.
Because as you rightly put it,
Yeah.
politicians mislead people. The Tuko Kadi have said, we don't want politicians in this. We are organizing ourselves. We are coming out in our own way, out of our own volition, finding our own means and ways to go and register so that we, the people, can assume a direction. I would opine, it is okay for you to come out and register with the intention of Ruto must go. And it is also okay for you to come out with the intention of Ruto must stay if
exactly.
you want. Both
Exactly.
can be right.
Yes.
But what we must agree is that we allow people to come out, register and vote.
True.
People must not be confined to political parties right now. There is still time. The conversation ought to be, as you say, what issues do we want to address as we approach this election?
By the way, I'm not confining anyone to a political party. What I'm saying is that our law provides that you will go to an election through a political
Yes,
party.
that is
And a
clear.
political party does not necessarily mean ODM, UDA, Wiper, and whatever.
You could
Okay?
say Kanu
You
to
didn't say-
make-
you didn't say-
didn't say
Kanu.
Kanu.
Oh, Kanu.
Kitty might leave the conversation feeling a bit tender.
It does not just mean that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It simply means that, you know what? You can as well come up with whatever the political party, but it must be a political party. You are not going to go to an election through a movement.
Hopefully based on issues now,
Our law,
not
exactly.
personalities.
Exactly. Our law does not provide a situation whereby you are going to an election through Linda Mwananchi. Linda Mwananchi is not a political party.
I don't think
Linda
anybody
Mwananchi
thinks
is
that.
not anything.
Okay.
So
And our
the
time
truth
doesn't-
is that you will go to an election through a political party. So
okay.
if you want to cause the change you so much desire,
Yes.
you are better off getting a signed political party ticket from Kidi Mwaga in Kanu than from
there's-
Linda Mwananchi.
Yeah, I think there's the assumption here that Edwin Sifuna said he wants to be president, and I don't think he said that yet.
None
and
of
it's
us have said that.
Yeah, no one has said that. I think you say you can't go to an election through Linda Mwananchi. Nobody has said that it's a party, number one. Nobody has said that they're going to vote in Linda Mwananchi. I don't think anybody has said that. The assumption could be there, but I think it would be a wrong assumption. And we've come to the top of the hour, so I have to say thank you to both of you gentlemen for being here this morning. And I think we can't ride on assumptions here, but this discourse is extremely important. Advice Mundalo, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Kiri, Maga, Asante, Sana. What did you say that thing was called? Something banana?
Makrabolo banana.
Macrabo banana. It's 9:01, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Until the next conversation, thank you for being here this morning. Good morning.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In a